So Trump has designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. As of 1300 AG Bars confirmed President Trump's tweet. The violence instigated and carried out by Antifa and other similar groups in connection with the rioting is domestic terrorism and will be treated accordingly. In what should not come as a surprise to many, President Trump has tweeted he is designating Antifa as terrorists. And you can see here. And Trump adds, the lamestream media is doing everything within their power to foment hatred and anarchy. As long as everybody understands what they are doing, that they are fake news and truly bad people with a sick agenda, we can easily work through them to greatness. This is back in 2019. He said, consideration is being given to declaring Antifa the gutless radical left-wing whack jobs who go around hitting only non-fighters, people over the heads with baseball bats. A major organization of terror, along with MS-13 and others, would make it easier for police to do their job. So there you can see my friends there. Jack Posobiec has tweeted, Trump's new order means a whole lot of Democrats have been donating money to a terrorist group. This is the Attorney General of Minnesota holding what is now a terrorist handbook. And there is some interesting things going on. Turns out pallets of bricks are appearing. See, Antifa claims to be this grassroots anarchy organization, but they're getting money. It's an astroturfed movement. It's all over the West, and they're getting money and they're getting help, and there's a big logistical support network here. We can see breaking, Baltimore police have found mounds of bricks and bottles with potential accelerators, starting fires. Police are currently sweeping the downtown area. There are demonstrations planned for today. And then you can see a picture down here. Someone stashed a big stack of bricks around the corner from the Baltimore City Hall last night. Not sure who put them there, but it is suspected that it was for protest today. So when you see these people throwing things, where is it coming from? With love from Baltimore to Minneapolis, it does not look like love. It's kind of like Antifa, You might as well call yourself the good guys, but it doesn't justify hurting people. So, Frisco, Texas, there have been groups organizing protests in Frisco for 5 p.m. this evening. All of a sudden, this shows up on the path to the protest. You want to tell me this is not planned and organized now? I mean, look at that. I don't know how much that weighs, but you're going to need a decent-sized forklift and a decent-sized truck to haul this around. And likely some specific licensing requirement to have a driver that's certified to drive that truck. So not just some random group of kids that trying to make a better world. We got another picture here on this under this overpass. Pallets of bricks are seen being planted in Frisco, Texas right now by 121 Plano Parkway. There is a Black Lives Matter protest today. So mysterious pallets of bricks have been filmed throughout major riot hotspots across the country in what appears to be more evidence that organized groups are using George Floyd protests to incite chaos and terrorism throughout the United States. And so there's some videos. I'll link to this. You can see it's pretty sad. This Cam TV, she tweets, I still have not heard from one mayor or governor stating they will open an investigation into what organization is placing pallets of bricks in cities used for the sole purpose of destruction. So I've talked a lot about the swing from the lower left to the upper right of the political compass. And what you see here is the lower left in action. This is the anarcho-communist, anarcho-socialist block of left-wing politics, and it's pretty ugly. I don't see the NAP breaking out. I don't see any peace and love breaking out. It's just chaos. It's almost like, the collapse of civilization, and it's getting real. And when it gets real, people turn to law and order. That's what's going to swing this compass back to the upper right. It's funny, you can see this basketball reporter here tweeting out support, all right, riots, go guys. And then they actually get close to his neighborhood and he changes his opinion a little bit. Yeah, it's not so fun. Like, you realize this stuff is not a game and that law and order is not such a bad thing. And then here you can see these so-called idealistic protesters that hate capitalism so much. Here's one in Seattle who is helping herself to an entire cheesecake. Capitalism isn't so bad when they make an abundance of food, particularly cheesecake. And I'll link to this article. There's a study in the national interest that shows that riots make America more conservative. And these were academics. You can go through it. They're clearly left-wing individuals, but they're compiling a lot of data, and what happens is people are faced with businesses burning down, they're faced with chaos, they're faced with the fears and the violence, and they will vote for who is going to make it stop. That's the route we're going. This sort of violence is counterproductive. This sort of destruction is counterproductive. And that's, if you ever have a political ideal, you forfeit all of your idealism. And let me show you what I mean. So as far as I know, the design of this matrix, as far as I know, this is unique to me. If someone else has already thought of this first, well, don't burst my bubble. So you can see I've got it divided up at the above the x-axis here. We have the political left and the political right. And down as the roots here, we have the cultural left and the cultural right. So the cultural left, the roots are fibrous. They're shallow, and yet they spread very wide. They're not deep, but spread far. And they feed the political left. Now, on the the cultural right is called a taproot. It's a narrower, but very, very deep root. And then on top you see the plant here. So if you want to think about this, the cultural access it's like the commercial. It's the music, it's the art, it's the poetry or the religion, or it's stuff that is not necessarily overtly political. But if I say, hey, there's an Earth Day festival, you want to go to that? And you're like, yeah, sure, I bet it's going to be a lot of people on the political left. Even if their concern is apolitical and they're trying to prevent, say, some old growth forest from being cut down. Or it may be a music festival or a reggae festival, and it's like all they're doing is playing the music. They're in this cultural left, though, and it feeds the political left, but it isn't, it isn't overtly political. TV shows, movies, whatnot. The political left would be the policy. It would be brass tacks, where the rubber meets the road. It would be capital gains tax rate at 40% on any short-term capital gains, or something like that. It would be the real specific policy. It would be all income earned over $100,000 should be taxed at 90%. Real detailed where the rubber meets the road type of thing. Use for an example, like think of a product like a Prius. The cultural left would be the attitude or the image that they sell, and the music used to sell that image, and the little jingle and all that kind of surface level stuff. And the political left then would be the nuts and bolts of the car itself. The brake pads, the tires, the steering, the fact that you've got to burn coal to charge your battery so that when the battery's running, you can say, look, I'm not polluting at all. And so you can kind of represent it all by the roots that come from the culture and then go feed up into the politics. And, like it or not, these days everything is politics. There's no escaping that. And in general, people's politics are coming from the cultural quadrants. Not too many people are policy wonks. Even people that are policy wonks are generally rooted in the culture. In general, on the right, again, you have narrower but deeper roots. The biggest powerhouse on the right would be religion. And but then you will have a lot of entrepreneurs. Somebody that built their business from the ground up over 30 years is probably leaning towards the political right. Again, don't think just because you can think of a counterexample, you've disproven this model. Those of you that believe in global warming, if I say, hey, it snowed in Washington a month ago, you'd say, that doesn't disprove the models. You get it. Generally on the right, once someone has gone to the right-wing spectrum of politics, they don't switch back to left. And it's usually a one-way movement. You won't see someone that was like, I was a conservative Republican for 35 years. I am now 68 and I am voting for, Nancy Pelosi for the first time. You generally don't see that. But I really like this. I'm going to go into more detail and kind of analyze this more at a later time. But I kind of like this graph. I think it really helps conceptualize the whole thing. So how does Antifa fit in all here? And I think what you're seeing is, think about the past 50 years. The cultural left, this network of roots, is really broad. I mean, think of all the music, think of all the art, think of all the movies, all the theater. That stuff is generally on the cultural left. Green movements, you name it. You may go from, I was an R&B fan, to then I got into punk rock, then it was like classic rock, and then I listened to, whatever, or then I got into acting classes, or you're generally going to find all of these things falling into the cultural left. But it's shallow, like it's skin deep sort of stuff. It's like there's a black girl and an Asian girl, and it's just very simple diversity. It isn't actually anything that's deep, but that's the cultural left. You can change your identity just as easily as you can change your clothes. And they've built up a lot of goodwill in American culture, like the show Friends. You don't think of that as a political show. But if I were to say, yeah, but who do you think they were voting for? Well, they were voting for Democrats. They were supporting the political left. And so over the past 50 years, this cultural movement here, the cultural right has struggled to keep up, and the cultural left has expanded this massive root base. Again, not very deep, but they have an incredible amount of political goodwill now. It's like you have a certain amount of political capital. You remember when Obama first became president, man, he had the world was his oyster. He could do anything, and he wasted it on Obamacare. But he had an incredible amount of political capital because everyone wanted to see a half-black president, the first, succeed. He had a tremendous approval rating. And unfortunately, he spoiled it all. But there is a such thing as political capital. And a lot of the politics of the left today is feeding off of what the cultural left has been providing for a very long time. Well, what happens when you start resorting to violence? That 50 years of political capital gets eaten up really, really fast because people get sick of watching businesses get burned down. They get tired of it, man. Nothing turns people off from a cause more than violence. It doesn't matter how just you think it is or how right you think it is. Violence never ages well. So this widespread root ball on the cultural left is shriveling up. People are getting sick of it. Meanwhile, the cultural right is sitting there, and the roots run deep, and it's standing tall, and people are beginning to cross over. We see the study saying how this pushes people to be more conservative, and we have seen this swing back to the right. We have seen the cultural right beginning to make inroads for the first time in a very long time. And, once you take the red pill, there's no turning back.